story begins with a man asking if the camera was on, to which another man replies that he was turning it on. When the camera is ready, the first man greets his subscribers. This is Kang Dakyo, a YouTube BJ and B-class hunter, welcoming his viewers to his Raid channel. Dakyo tells his audience that today's raid monster is a C++ grade, and he's going to demonstrate how to attack an arachne. He explains that, as they can see, arachnes live in groups like ants and are classified as a spider species. Pointing at the monsters above him, Dakyo confidently states that arachnes are completely different from earth spiders. For instance, instead of attacking right away, they spit webs. But then, shocking him, the arachnes charge at them directly. Dakyo corrects himself, realizing they don't spit webs initially but instead rush their enemies. An arachne launches its sharp claw at them, but fortunately Dakyo blocks it with his sword. He shouts in confusion, asking what's happening, and orders the cameraman to stop filming. The cameraman, Ming Siwoo, who is responsible for filming and editing the Raid channel, is in disbelief. He knows the arachne's usual fighting style is not direct combat, but hunting. They typically spit webs to entangle their prey and then inject venom, causing a slow death. There's no way they would charge forward like this. Dakyo furiously glares at Siwoo, calling him a bastard, and then launches at the arachne in front of him, shouting that they would talk later. Siwoo fearfully replies, stuttering a no. The arachne tries to spit venom at Dakyo, but he dodges it and manages to slash the arachne in half. Dakyo then moves on to the other arachnes, killing them one by one. Moments later, Dakyo, having slain all the arachnes, angrily shouts at Siwoo, reminding him that he had said arachnes spit webs first. Siwoo stays silent, thinking that rushing might be a last resort for desperate arachnes with nothing to lose. He snaps back to reality when Dakyo shouts his name and grabs his collar, demanding if he's going to continue acting this way. Siwoo stutters an apology, but Dakyo punches him in the stomach, asking if apologizing fixes everything when he almost died because of him. He was down on the ground in pain, but Dakyo just told him to do his investigations properly. Dakyo then turned around in anger and said that this was why the traitless wouldn't make it. In this world, traits are special abilities given upon awakening, often called unique abilities. Siwoo was awakened, but his ability was deemed traitless, an ability that was nothing special. Being traitless was completely useless in the hunting industry. To survive, Siwoo had chosen to analyze monsters and teach hunters how to attack them. Dakyo proudly told the others that he almost died because of Siwoo, and if it wasn't for him, they would have been dead too. But then, the other men shakily and fearfully called out to Dakyo, pointing behind him. Confused and unaware, Dakyo didn't realize there was a monster behind him. The monster then stamped its sharp claw on the ground, and they all ran away, realizing it was an elite monster, a mutant species transformed from an ordinary monster. As they fled, Dakyo's sword fell. He wondered if he would really die at this rate, and thought that if he wanted to survive, he needed bait, deciding that Ming Siwoo would be it. Dakyo kicked Siwoo in the face, causing him to fall backward. Dakyo then told him that it was all because of his lousy investigation, so he needed to take responsibility. Siwoo cursed Dakyo in anger while lying on the ground, but Dakyo and the others just left him there. Siwoo was stunned with horror as he heard the monster coming closer. It screamed loudly, horrifying him, and he realized his body wouldn't respond. He wondered if he was going to die like this. In that moment, he remembered his mother calling him in the hospital, telling him that he must protect Siwoo. This memory snapped him back to reality, and he realized he couldn't die there, not for his little sister Siwoo's sake. He then grabbed Dakyo's fallen sword and faced the monster, determined to survive at all costs. He launched the sword at the monster, but then a bright power appeared out of nowhere and hit the monster, throwing Siwoo back. Confused, he looked to his side and saw a bright light and a man standing, making him wonder who that guy was. But then, another powerful light appeared, surprising both of them. Another man with sharp teeth and purple eyes asked the first man where he had been hiding. The purple-eyed man then jumped and launched his fist at the man with the bright light, calling him an arrogant bastard and saying this was where he'd stop running away. Siwoo wondered why they were fighting. The purple man launched his fist, and the yellow man did the same. They fought face to face, and when their fists collided, it caused a loud explosion of power. Siwoo couldn't believe what he was seeing, and asked himself what was going on. He noticed that even the arachnids and elite monsters trembled in fear of these two overwhelming beings. He watched them fight at incredible speed, attacking each other fiercely. Siwoo covered his face, wondering who these men were. The purple man gained the upper hand, managing to kick the yellow man, sending him slamming into a wall, which caused an explosion. The purple man demanded that the yellow man tell him where they were hiding and declared he had enough of their rebellion. The yellow man refused, saying they still had a long way to go until it was over, and then gathered power in his palm. The purple man did the same, tauntingly asking if the yellow man wanted to go all the way. They both unleashed their powers at each other, and the forces collided. The purple man warned that at this rate, the yellow man wouldn't escape unscathed either. Smiling, the yellow man replied that he didn't care because he left the possibility open. Glancing at Siwoo, apologizing for getting Siwoo swept into this, the yellow man prepared for the final clash. Before the purple man could respond, their powers completely intertwined and exploded, dragging them both together. Powerful forces slammed into the ground, and a strong energy appeared in front of Siwoo, shocking him. The yellow man told Siwoo he would leave it to him. Siwoo covered himself with his arms as the energy approached. Moments later, the bright power disappeared, and Siwoo had successfully protected himself. He looked up, wondering what the heck had just happened. As he moved backward, he stepped on something, a smartphone. He immediately picked it up, confused as to why there would be a smartphone there. The phone displayed a message, "New manager confirmed, checking connection path." Siwoo was bewildered. Then the phone showed that the manager position succession was completed, and strong gods appeared above him without him noticing. He peeked back, and the phone welcomed him to GodTube, calling him manager. Meanwhile, outside the Arachni's cave, the men in Dakiel were catching their breaths. Dakiel cursed in anger, questioning his luck and the chances of facing an elite monster in a C+ dungeon. The men told Dakiel that thanks to him, they all survived, and using Siwoo as bait was a great choice. They expected nothing less from a B-rank hunter. Dakiel proudly replied that he didn't name their channel, "We shall raid everything for no reason," and that he was always ready for such challenges. Just then, Siwoo emerged from the cave and called Dakiel a son of a bitch, shocking him. Dakiel was about to ask how he survived, but Siwoo launched his fist to punch him. Dakiel elbowed his arm to stop him and punched Siwoo in the face, reminding him that he was only an F-rank hunter. Dakiel then said that he didn't know how Siwoo survived, but it worked out, and he was too lazy to find a new editor. Siwoo asked if Dakiel was serious, and if he really thought he'd keep working for someone who tried to kill him. Dakiel reminded him that he was the one begging and crying for money for his sister's medicine, so he helped out of generosity, which meant Siwoo owed him and should know his place. Siwoo slapped Dakiel's hand away and told him that if he couldn't accept it, he shouldn't miss any of it. This had become a habit of his, because Dakiel's complaints had unexpectedly proven helpful. Siwoo then showed the camera and asked Dakiel if he could imagine the views they'd get if he uploaded the video of him being left behind. Dakiel sighed, reminding Siwoo that he could kill him right there, but Siwoo replied that he'd die. But Dakiel would go to prison and lose his hard-earned channel. He asked Dakiel if they should test it, but then Dakiel warned that if the video got uploaded anywhere, his sister wouldn't be safe either. As Dakiel walked away, he shouted to his men that they'd find a new editor and ordered them to grab their stuff. Before they left, Siwoo warned Dakiel to try hurting his sister and that he had no idea what he'd do. Later, back in his room, Siwoo looked at the phone, thinking about GodTube and wondering if it was a channel for gods. He knew that NewTube was a free website where anyone could upload videos, and among the many channels, the most popular ones were hunter channels. However, on GodTube, he saw channels like the Holy Sword I bought from Hephaestus, and will try on Lucifer and World Eater Snake Jormungand in minutes. He realized these channels featured gods from mythology, figures from lore, heroes, and legendary beings. He wondered if they ran that channel, who the yellow guy was, and why he had given him that phone. Everything was confusing, but he thought if it was real and they really ran NewTube channels, They probably started with at least 1 million subscribers. He decided to give it a try, knowing it wasn't a bad idea. The phone showed him that to become a member, he could watch and learn from the Insights Plus Traits lecture. He subscribed to a channel with a video titled "The Reason Why I Left My Family to Demons." He was surprised when the phone showed that he had subscribed to Zhu Liang's channel and acquired Insight S. He was confused, knowing that S Plus was a classification people assumed existed only in legends and not a rank. He recalled the 13 heroes who fought against the Demon Lord. People believed they might have had S Plus traits. He couldn't believe he got it just by subscribing to a channel. He thought if it was real, he should have felt something, but he didn't notice any changes. He wondered if it enhanced his observation and intelligence, making it hard to notice the difference instantly. He then saw the channel of Ed Hercules, featuring a 10,000 subscribers event, free personal training session, and how to pull out Zeus's house. He subscribed, thinking he would notice a difference with that one. The phone showed him that he had subscribed to Hercules' channel and acquired Superhuman Strength SS. In shock, he slammed his fist on the table, breaking it. He was amazed to see that he had actually gotten an SS rank trait. The phone then showed him that he had used Superhuman Strength, and his proficiency had increased slightly, currently at 0.1%. He couldn't believe he really got an SS trait just by subscribing. He shouted in disbelief, not understanding what GodTube was. The phone then showed that his Insight S Plus proficiency had slightly increased due to his intense thinking and was currently at 0.1%. He wondered if he had to reach 100% to fully acquire the trait, then remembered the personal training from Hercules. He clicked on Hercules' video and watched in awe as Hercules lifted a huge pillar like it was a stick, amazed by the leg stimulation Hercules mentioned. He was shocked by what he witnessed and wondered how he was supposed to follow it. He unsubscribed on Hercules' channel, realizing why Hercules had only 1 subscriber. But the phone showed that he was unable to unsubscribe. Hercules then laughed, calling him Skinny Boy, and told him he could come in whenever he wanted, but he couldn't leave whenever he wanted. This shocked Siwoo in horror. Despite trying many times, he was unable to unsubscribe from Hercules, making him fearful and questioning if he really couldn't unsubscribe. The phone then showed him that once subscribed, unsubscribing is impossible, and his chances were 2 out of 3. Hercules then told him that he'd see him tomorrow. Just then, his other phone rang with a call from Dakiol, making Siwoo angry. He wondered why Dakiol was calling him. Siwoo answered and curtly asked Dakiol what he wanted, but Dakiol just expressed surprise that Siwoo actually picked up, thinking he would have blocked him. Siwoo repeated his question, asking what Dakiol wanted. Dakiol then asked if it was true that Siwoo had nowhere else to go. Siwoo retorted, asking if Dakiol was calling to taunt him, but Dakiol said he wanted to discuss business. Siwoo snapped back, telling Dakiol to take his business elsewhere. Dakiol told him not to be so mean and reminded him that they had been working together until recently. Siwoo, impatient, demanded Dakiol get to the point because he didn't have time to waste. This annoyed Dakiol, but he asked if Siwoo wanted to join them because the SH Group had asked to stream together. Siwoo was surprised, knowing that the SH Group was Korea's #1 financial company, and recently, the group's granddaughter had awakened with 2 seconds traits as a hunter. He guessed they were getting into the hunting industry as well. Dakiol explained that he thought the SH Group was expanding their business and wanted to see what it was like. Dakiol then reminded him it was the SH Group and asked for his thoughts. Siwoo replied with a firm no. Dakiol asked if he really meant it and offered to pay him 5,000 per video, which shocked Siwoo. Dakiol then asked if he wanted to join now, but Siwoo still smilingly replied no. Dakiol, frustrated, told him that 5,000 was 10 times more than he usually paid him and that it was a win-win for them. He asked how much Siwoo wanted, to which Siwoo replied 50,000. This made Dakiol snap, shouting if Siwoo was crazy and if he really thought he was worth that much, considering the SH Group was paying him a lot. The phone then showed that his insight proficiency had increased by 0.2%. Siwoo told Dakiol to let him guess why the SH Group was trying to stream with him instead of other S-rank hunters. Dakiol, angry, asked him why. Siwoo explained that it was obvious Han-tae's son, the SH Group chairman, wouldn't just sit and watch after his granddaughter awakened with 2 S-rank traits. He would want her to learn the basics first, and the basics for hunters included how to hunt monsters. That was why Siwoo's channel had 210,000 subscribers, because of his unique strategies. Therefore, the reason Chairman Han Tae-sun approached him was not because of him, but because of his knowledge. Dakyeol admitted that 50,000 was still too much. Siwoo asked if didn't want to go through with it, making Dakyeol even more pissed. Siwoo then put his phone down, switched to speaker mode, and told Dakyeol that if he couldn't get a loan or something, he should look for someone else. The next day, they were inside a B-class dungeon. Siwoo asked Dakyeol where he was going to wire the rest of the money. Dakyeol reminded him that he said he would send it as soon as the raid ended. Siwoo then asked when Han Karin would be joining them. They both looked back when they heard someone approaching, and a lady introduced herself as Han Karin, who would be joining the raid. She told them they should depart right away. Siwoo was surprised to see that it was Karin and thought she was very pretty, but he knew she might be difficult to get close to. He didn't care though, as long as he got his money and could get the job done. A moment later, they encountered the first monster in the raid. While Siwoo was fixing the camera, Karin identified it as a black troll. Dakyeol confirmed she was right and explained that the black troll was classified as a B+ monster. He added that although it was a class monster, its regenerative abilities were close to immortality, so those who didn't know how to attack it might lose their lives, something Siwoo had explained to Dakyeol before the raid. Dakyeol further explained that the common strategy was to tear the black troll's body apart, destroy its heart, and cut off its head to prevent regeneration. However, Karin suddenly grabbed Dakyeol's sword and rushed at the black troll, shocking Dakyeol. She jumped, stabbed the black troll's heart, withdrew her sword, and cut off the black troll's head in one swift slash. She then looked up at them, who were confused, and told them that it was easy. Dakyeol, smiling, told her he couldn't believe she caught it so flawlessly with just a rough explanation, saying he expected no less from an S-class hunter. She swung her sword to shake off the blood and told Dakyeol he was flattering her. Siwoo noticed her sword and remarked that it must be a weapon made by Aurelian, a smithy reputed to be the best in the world. He asked her how much her sword cost, and she replied that it was around 20 billion, shocking both Siwoo and Dakyeol. She then told them that she couldn't get a feel for it after catching just one troll and suggested they move deeper into the dungeon. An hour later, they were deeper into the raid. Karin stepped on a pool of blood on the ground, remarking that she thought she had gotten a feel for the place and suggested they wrap it up since there didn't seem to be any more trolls. Dakyeol grabbed her hand and bowed, thanking her for her hard work. She replied that she was leaving now. Dakyeol was frustrated because he thought this would be a good opportunity to be scouted by the SH Hunter Guild, but now he was about to get ripped off for 50,000 won by that bastard Siwoo. Siwoo smiled, knowing Dakyeol was worried about the 50,000 won, which was good for him. Suddenly, he felt the cave shake. Karin asked what was happening, and Dakyeol saw an opportunity, telling her that judging by the tremors, it might be an elite monster. However, he shook with fear, knowing it wasn't an elite monster but a boss monster. A huge creature then appeared in front of them, glaring menacingly. It raised its hand to attack, but Karin stared it down and blocked the attack with her sword. Dakyeol shouted for everyone to run, which they did, but the boss monster noticed them and pushed Karin away. It then threw stones at them, hitting every man in the back of the head. Dakyeol kept running, thinking about the SH group and Karin, but he knew he had to survive first. He needed to escape, but he stopped when he saw the monster in front of him, ready to crush him to death. Dakyeol was paralyzed with fear, knowing he was doomed, but fortunately, Karin appeared in time to block the attack. The boss monster was too strong and pushed her away, slamming her into the ground. As the monster launched its fist at her again, she knew she had to dodge. She managed to stand and jump onto its arm, evading the attack. She then ran up to its head, slashing continuously with her sword, but she barely scratched it. The monster looked at her in anger, shocking her. It then hit her, sending her crashing to the ground and dragging her along with the force. The monster launched its fist at her again, shattering the ground, but she blocked it with her sword, struggling to hold it back. On the other hand, Siwoo stood to the side, stunned with shock and fear. He realized they couldn't win against this monster. Even with Han Karin, a hunter with 2 seconds-class trades, she was still a beginner lacking experience. They couldn't win, and the only choice he had was to leave Karin behind and run away, or else he was going to die. But then he wondered if he should believe in Godtube's SS rank super strength, not knowing exactly what rank it currently was. Suddenly, Dakiel ran past him, panicking and fleeing without caring about anyone else. Dakiel's actions made Siwoo realize and remember the time when Dakiel kicked him and left him to die at the hands of an elite monster, blaming his investigation. He saw Karin struggling to protect herself. He knew they couldn't win, and his brain kept telling him to run or die a dog's death. However, he called the boss monster's attention, thinking that money and prestige were useless if he died. If he left Karin behind and ran away, he would be no different from that trashy bastard Kang Daxiol who abandoned him. Siwoo met the boss monster's fist mid-air and successfully deflected it. Karin couldn't believe he deflected its fist and looked at him, wondering who he was. Siwoo walked closer to the boss monster, drawing on Hercules' strength. He sighed to calm himself and checked his SS superhuman strength. The boss monster pulled its fist out of the ceiling and launched it toward them again. But Siwoo blocked it with his body and managed to stop it. The boss monster pushed harder, but Siwoo continued blocking it, shouting to Karin to attack. She was surprised but jumped at the boss monster. It saw her, but she managed to stab its heart before it could block her. She then kicked away, rolled in the air to gain height, landed on its shoulder, and ran to its head, cutting it off in one slash. She landed on the ground as the boss monster lost its balance. Siwoo wondered if it was over and used his Insight S, realizing something was odd. He remembered that boss species are variants that undergo double transformation, so a physical transformation was likely. The boss monster's head restored itself, and Siwoo shouted to Karin to dodge, but it was too late. The boss monster grabbed her, squeezing her and making her shout in pain. Siwoo panicked, knowing it would be all over if Karin died. But he had to act. He thought that if all the traits he gained from Godtube were real, even though they were weak now, they could still buy a little time. He grabbed one of the boss monster's fingers that was holding Karin. She begged him to run away, but he shouted back, telling her to aim for its heart. Karin pushed herself and tried her best to squeeze out of the boss's hand, which she luckily managed to do. She then told Siwoo that she understood and ran at the boss monster. He shouted for her to trust him and go. The boss monster noticed her and tried to lift its hand to attack, but it realized Siwoo was holding it back. He smiled at the monster, seeing it struggle to take its hand back. Karin ran at it, jumped on its arm that Siwoo was holding, and dragged her sword along its arm, making it scream in pain. She looked at the monster seriously and stabbed its heart once again. Siwoo knew he could hold for another 0.5 seconds at most, and there was no time to explain how to attack the ogre. He shouted to her that the had 2 hearts, which shocked her, but he was sure she would figure it out with her 6th sense. The monster tried to push her away, but she dodged and used her 6th sense to trace its other heart. She then launched herself at it with her sword and stabbed it in the other chest where the 2nd heart was located. Siwoo jumped towards the monster, shouting for it to stop and die while launching his fist. The phone showed that his abilities were being temporarily increased. The boss monster swore in fear as Siwoo got closer, then he hit its head, causing it to explode.